There is a way to create habits that works, and it's proven. It's tiny habits.
The biggest challenge with that is people forget. I may decide today, but next day, I'll be just mindlessly scrolling through my phone.
Each person listening to this or watching this, you can be deliberate about designing habits into your life, and it's not that hard to do. The misinformation that it takes 66 days to create a habit or 30 is sad. You're damaging people by selling them 66 days. It is simply not true.
That's BJ Fogg, Stanford behavior scientist, author of the bestseller Tiny Habits, and the man behind 60,000 habit transformations.
A lot of us are not in control of the habits that we acquire. How important is to recruit external help?
I think I'm going to answer this in a way you're not expecting. I'm talking maybe not to you, but people listening and watching that are damaging your life, that are threatening your well-being. Get professional help. I had a serious addiction. People think it's funny, and my editor and agent were like, no, you can't talk about your addiction in the book. But that was hard.
New Year around the corner. A lot of people will be making those resolutions. Gym membership will go up.
Just use discipline or willpower to get there. That does not work. It's not repetition that creates habits. It's emotions. The stronger that emotion, the faster the habit will wire in.
Hi BJ, welcome to SparX. Really looking forward to this conversation. Just for our audience, our guest today is Mr. BJ Fogg. He is a researcher and lecturer at Stanford University. He has been studying behavior design and science of habit formation for over 30 years. He has written the most definitive book on this area called Tiny Habits. BJ, I want to share with you that I must have gifted this book to over 100 people over the last 6-7 years among my friends, colleagues. I'm involved in a few different startups, and and you have made this case, I think, consistently throughout your career on how important habits are. Pretty much we are all in some ways bundle of habits, and I think you have created this playbook of sorts where people can approach this complex area with literally tiny changes, as as your book title says. I want to start with first. I was I was preparing for this, BJ, and I was thinking about. So BJ has studied this area for 30 years. Are we at a point where the science of habit is all done and dusted? We know everything about it. It's only a matter of translating that into behavior change, or is still an active area of research? There's more to uncover about neuroscience of habits, and where are we with this whole field?
Yeah. That's a great question. Let me answer that question directly and simply, and then I'll back up a little bit and give a little bit more on my background. There's a lot still to discover about habits. Habits is a fairly complicated area. Building habits is different than stopping habits. That's not the same thing. That's like building a house and tearing it down. It's not the same thing. And much of the research has been regurgitated over and over, and some of it is not very useful. It might have worked in the lab, but it may not work. So a lot of people who come my way have been very diligent, studying all the academic publications and so on. And that's good, and I'm impressed by that. But it is a fairly complicated landscape, and what you find there isn't necessarily that practical. Now, my own work, I've been doing teaching and research at Stanford since at least 1995. But at that time, I wasn't studying habits. I was studying the impact of how computers would influence our attitudes and behaviors. And I did groundbreaking work there and raised the alarm of bad things are coming here in 1998. And people thought I was crazy, but I was like, no, there are things happening where computers can influence attitudes and behaviors. And we need to create policy around this. We need to educate around this. I did a formal testimony a few years later to the Federal Trade Commission in the US. Nobody cared. Nobody followed. That was 2006. Nobody followed up with me. It was shortly after that, I would say about 2008, 9, that my research lab at Stanford, we shifted focus away from technology and behavior change and just started looking at human behavior. Okay, so that's when that shift happened. And created a model called the Fogg behavior model in 2007, which kind of accelerated that shift just to looking at behavior. And then more and more, starting about 2010, started looking at behavior types. And one of those types is habits. So that's the trajectory. And then 2011 developed the Tiny Habits method and started teaching that and taught thousands of people, coached over 60,000 people personally over the course of 8 years. So week after week after week, I was coaching hundreds of people personally. And that's where I really learned a lot about what really works in terms of habits and what doesn't work. Because when you're coaching 200 to 300 people a week, week after week after week, and gathering data every weekend, and you do that for 10, 20, 30, eventually 60,000 people, you really see what happens. So that was my trajectory. Now at Stanford, I am, of course, helping with behavior change, especially with health habits. I'm part of the School of Medicine there.
Yeah, outstanding. And it seems, Bijay, your career has also kind of mirrored those kind of two conflicting forces in the world. On one hand, technology has been the biggest shaper of habits that a lot of us have acquired over the last 20, 30 years. And now I think later on we'll talk about, how AI is going to change for the better or worse later. But simultaneously, people have been also trying to, in some ways, take control of their own lives. And I think you start in your book right off the bat that, while through work of, yours and other researchers, our understanding of habits and behavior has gotten better, but world as a whole is not necessarily getting, slimmer or healthier or, acquiring good habit as a large cohort. Yes, your work has impacted, I'm pretty sure hundreds of thousands of people or probably a lot more by this time. But where do you think, where are on this, if I can frame it as a race or conflict where, we are bombarded with the influences from our larger environment, which almost makes it so easy for us to acquire bad habits. On the other hand, we want better lives, we want better health and so on. How do you look at this whole zoom out? How is this going for all of us as a whole?
I think we are in the awkward adolescent stage. Culturally, at least in the US, that I know the best. I don't know of other places in the world. And that means we see potential, we're kind of gangly, we're growing, we're making lots of mistakes and figuring it out, but we haven't yet figured it out. And I'm hopeful, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm hopeful that as a society, as different, I guess you call them cultures, we will be more sophisticated in how we use technology. We'll use it gracefully and we'll use it to help ourselves. We'll recognize I'll just call them the bad forces, the things that make us less than optimal, and not fall for those things. I think we're in not a toddler stage. That might have been back in the day when you were in Silicon Valley and so on, toddler stage. I think we're in an adolescent stage. And that also means a sense of overconfidence and things like that. That's where I'd put us right now.
Got it. And when you say we are in an adolescent stage, do you mean we understand the influence of technology on our lives and there's acknowledgement and awareness of that? Is that what you mean? No,
I feel like we don't fully understand that. And that there's lots of struggles and the struggles are emerging. When I started in 1998, that's when I published the first both industry and academic paper saying, hey, these problems are coming. So I formally talked about it in 1998. It was, nobody really cared. So that was sort of like before the problems emerged. And so I think wouldn't even call that the adolescent stage. It was just people weren't concerned about it and didn't take action. And I think now people are concerned, and rightfully so. And all of us, both in our personal and professional lives, need to find how technology helps us and need to identify ways that it doesn't help us and design habits, basically, and maybe even policies within communities and nations, and maybe even really strict rules within schools and homes about how technology gets used.
I'll come back to technology, towards the end. Let's focus on individual. I think in your, at least the way I understand, this area, BJ, is in some ways we are all bundle of habits. As humans, we are at some level pretty good at acquiring habits. We almost can't function if we don't have a set of habits. But simultaneously, a lot of us are not in control of the habits that we acquire, habits that we would like to add, habits we would like to delete from our lives. What has been your understanding, having studied this and coached a lot of people? If you, and maybe I'm asking for you for oversimplification at this point, is your message to people is like you can really take in control of your habits and really take this editorial pen, or we'll have to, for every single habit we want to make change, we'll have to go through the whole cycle of significant behavior change. What's your message to people?
Well, I think it's this. We can be, each person listening to this or watching this, you can be deliberate about designing habits into your life. And it's not that hard to do. And you're never perfect, but you can figure out how to create new habits and bring them into your life and be deliberate about it. Now, on the flip side is not being deliberate about it. Let's take one of my Stanford students, and let's say they move from one dorm to another dorm, the other side of the campus. Guess what? They're going to be forming a whole bunch of new habits. Where do I park my bike? Where do I eat? Where do I go to my room? Who do I talk to in the morning? And they can either, that's how we are as human beings. We will form habits, and we can either be aware of them and just let them happen. Because like where you park your bike probably really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But we can also be very deliberate about them. And that's what I'm doing in Tiny Habits in my work is like, there's a way to create habits that is systematic and easy to do, and it actually works, and it's unlike anything that came before it.
And would you say like being deliberate itself is like a meta habit? Once I learn how to floss my teeth in the evening, I'll automatically learn to be deliberate about where I park my car?
Yeah, it's kind of like, well, let's use driving as an analogy. When you first start driving, right, you're thinking of all these things and and it feels complicated. But as you get the skill of driving, you don't even think about it anymore. It's quite automatic. And that's the way it is with creating habits. Now, again, breaking and stopping habits is a whole different territory. But there are a set of skills, and as you know, I outlined them in my book. Habit formation is a skill, just like driving is a skill, or just like playing a musical instrument is a skill. And you don't have to have all the skills to be able to do it. But the more skilled you are and the more practice, the more automatic they become, and the easier it is to create many types of habits.
I find that message very powerful, and maybe I'll ask you to maybe elaborate more. That what you're saying is once you have mastered the skill of building habits, then you can exercise the skill across whole variety of habits, and you can slowly kind of chisel your way to a much better life by acquiring this particular skill.
Yes, with one shift in what you said. It's not that slow to see the positive impact in your life. You can see it right away. And you don't have to get all the habits perfect to start noticing that you're happier, you're healthier, you're, all these positive benefits. But that's, I think, a very unusual way to think about behavior change is habit formation as a skill. It's actually a set of skills, just like driving is a set of skills or playing the piano is a set of skills. So we can talk about it as a skill.
Right.
But there's a set of them. And the more you practice those skills in the right way, the easier it becomes. And sometimes people will stumble across some of those skills and learn them. And sometimes people are naturally good at them. Like the ability to say, I did a good job. To self-reinforce is one of those skills. Yeah. Some people are very, very good at that naturally. And then on the end of the spectrum, some people are terrible at that. And even with coaching, they simply won't do it. And this is where habit coaches come in. Yeah. They, just like a driving teacher or a piano teacher, will help you practice driving or practice playing piano in the right way so you develop skills. Same thing with habit coaches. They have that ability to match you with the best habits, help you practice in the right way, help you self-reinforce, help you expand that habit, etc. My book is trying to do that for everybody who reads it, right? But it's not a short book. It's not a 30-minute read. If I could have done it in 30 minutes, I would have. But you are helping me, I think, spotlight one of the key insights is that habit formation, and in some ways you can generalize it out to behavior change, is something you yes, you can do it. And yes, you can learn to get better at it to a point where it will feel effortless or almost effortless.
And if you look at, most of us are awake for 16 hours, or I guess should be awake. I think a lot of people are awake for a lot more than 16 hours, which is, a different sort of habit people need to work on. But a lot happens, every hour and literally every 10 minutes of day. What is the entire span of habits I can play with? Would you say, like, in the spirit of tiny habit, pick one thing, sometime during the day and work on that to kind of get better the skill, or kind of think of eventually you can play with pretty much anything that happens in your day?
Yeah. What a great question. I am a very big fan of having people work on morning habits, habits in the morning and daily morning habits. Not every other day habits are quite hard, but daily things you do on a regular basis pretty much at the same time. And morning habits are easier to form than habits at other times. So that's a great place to start. And when you have great morning habits, it tends to help you do better in the rest of your day, including when you face hardships or, so morning habits are a good place to start. Another thing I would focus on, I could go and say sleep and relationships and those things, habits around that. We could get there if you want. But the other type of behavior change that is in my book a little bit, but I talk about it elsewhere a lot more, is changing as a household, creating environments and systems that in this household, here's how we use media, here's how we eat, here's how we, here's how the relationships work in this household, here's how tidiness work. The household is a unit of change. And I'm not saying the family, because households can be like roommates. The household as a unit of change has not been, shall I say, used as much as it could be. It's a very powerful, so yes, individual level change is mostly what the Tiny Habits book is about. But I also want people to think about how can we change together as a household. This was a focus of research in my lab, and we looked at different patterns of change and how powerful that can be when you change together.
And I'm guessing that's somewhat connected to the influence of environment on your habits, and household is obviously one. You spend a lot of time there. It's also a very emotionally rich environment for you, so the ability to influence is probably even higher. But I guess the same can be extended to your work environment or an academic institute, or wherever you spend a lot of time. Whoever is in charge of designing that can indirectly influence a lot about which habits you end up picking or hopefully dropping.
And let me give a couple of examples. So in the household, and I do talk about this in the Tiny Habits book, I have this concept that I call super fridge, which we do in my household. And what it is you figure out what your nutrition game plan is. Here's what we're eating. Here's what we're not eating. Well, you get rid of all the stuff you don't want to eat, right? For us, it's no soda and actually no ice cream, sad, etc. And it's not in the house. And then you set up the fridge so everything in there is really easy to eat. You don't have lots of preparation and everything's on your game plan. So you design the fridge for the household in a way that it helps you eat according to the nutrition game plan that you want. So that's a household version. I've also created a system. There's a large integrated healthcare provider in the US called Kaiser Permanente. And they have like 110,000 employees or something like that. And just because they work for a healthcare system doesn't mean they're necessarily better at it. And so we created a solution where they could work together. It's called unit-based teams, which are small teams. And they together can figure out what are the habits we want to create together at work. And then they would work together to do that kind of thing, helping and supporting each other. And it's not just motivating each other, it's making it easy to do. And as long as I guess we're on food as a topic, for example, if somebody, they used to bring donuts on Friday. And it's like, no, we have decided together we're going to try to reduce our sugar input. So nobody then brings in the donuts on Friday. They bring in something else that's going to be on game plan. So it's not just a matter of motivation or cheering people on. It is making the good behaviors easy to do and the unwanted behaviors hard to do, or in the case of us and ice cream, nearly impossible because we would have to drive 20 minutes to the store to get it. So that's part of how the environment really affects our behavior, and we can deliberately design our environment, our built environment, our social environment, the tools and resources around us to help us do the habits we want and to make the habits we don't want to do harder, impossible.
Yeah, this is reminding me of one small anecdote I'll share. This was when I was in my 30s and I was quite tired of watching TV, especially late night shows. This was when I was in US, and when I was shifting house, I decided to just sell my TV and not buy another TV. Unfortunately, there was not so much content on the internet at the time. And then after it was a struggle for few months, but then since then I've never had TV in my house, and I just don't watch TV anymore. And that's a example of changing the environment. I didn't change first. First, I changed my house where there was no TV, and eventually that led to this habit.
That's a great example. And some people that are watching or listening to this would think, great, let's try that. And some people go, oh, no way, that's not for us.
In our own... As you're describing the Kaiser example, I was thinking also who makes those environment, design. I was also thinking about my current company, the office I go to. There is a kitchen counter and there is this cookies kept on the counter. Now I can, as a leader, I can just decide to remove those cookies, but a lot of people are going to be very unhappy. How do you approach? Should I get some people together, discuss? How do you make it somewhat democratic choice versus top down?
You know what? I'm just going to raise a red flag here.
Okay.
Food is hard to talk to.
Right.
Food is very personal. It's like talking about people's kids.
Yeah.
So if it's people in your household, you can have that discussion. But man, food's tough. In fact, even in the Tiny Habits book, I pulled out a lot of food examples. I mean, I removed them and I replaced them with others because yes, we can create good habits around food. And that does naturally lead to us stopping some of the bad habits around food, because positive change will change our identity, which then has a ripple effect.
Yeah.
But to your question, I wouldn't go there. Honestly, I probably wouldn't go there in the work environment, at least. Or maybe I would just do it very, very softly. But food, at least in the cultures I'm in, is very personal. And people can get upset and defensive very quickly.
How about just moving it to less visible place so that it's not...
Okay. Well, I would give an example where I did that in my own life. So years ago, I was visiting my parents, and I went to their home, and they had a little candy dish, like all over the house. So anywhere they're sitting, they could reach and grab these candies. And I was like, what? And in their minds, they kind of thought, we shouldn't be eating so much candy, but here are the candy dishes. Yeah. So when I visited them, I took all the candy dishes and I put them away in drawers, which might have been overstepping my bounds a little bit, but they're my parents and, whatever. That's different than working with a stranger or colleague and trying to change their food choices. So there are times when helping others with whatever habit is a good thing, and there are times where you have to tread carefully.
Fair. Okay, food may be hard. I want to talk to you about a little bit of fitness, because that's and especially with the New Year around the corner, a lot of people will be making those resolutions. Gym memberships will go up. In fact, I also should, I don't know if you're aware or not. So I run the largest fitness company in India, CureFit. We have over 700 gyms. But one of the things, last 10 years building this business, we had to also wrestle with how do we encourage people to build this new habit. And this one, fitness is not tiny habit, because I need to create a 2-hour hole in my day somehow to start. You have to get ready, you have to drive to a gym, you have to find parking, spend an hour in the gym. By the time you are back, and those 2 hours are today, people are not sitting idle at home, they are doing something else. How would you suggest, both, maybe a two-part question, both for us as a business as well as an individual who might be considering starting a fitness habit? How do we approach it? What have you learned? You must have helped tons of people acquire some kind of fitness habit. So share, your learnings.
Yeah, I work with a lot of businesses to help them optimize customer behavior and beneficial ways for the customers. But let me get to that second. Let's start with individuals. Individuals and being active and fit. There is, I don't want to take too much time on this. I'll be brief and you can ask follow-on questions. One of the keys, one of the most important things is for each person to identify what is a physical a movement activity, I don't even want to call it fitness, that I like doing and I can get myself to do. So don't force yourself to do something you don't want to do. That will not become a habit. But that is how we were kind of trained. And that's how, what everything said, I think before the tiny habits method is like, set a goal and then just stick to it every day and never fail. Even if, just use discipline or willpower to get there. That does not work. So if somebody doesn't have a habit of physical activity, whether that's cardio or strength or other types of things, start with making a list. What are things that I like doing? I like dancing. I like swimming. I like gardening or whatever. And then pick things you like and make them really small and tiny and easy to do. So if it's dancing, then just say, okay, I'm going to dance for about 30 seconds every morning while my coffee is brewing.
Yeah.
And just do a tiny version of that. If you want to do more dancing, you can, but you don't have to. So pick what you like and make it really easy to do. And every day you want to do more than a tiny version, do more. But the days you don't. And what happens, and then there's more to the method to help the habit wire in, but what happens when people do a habit like that and feel successful, they will naturally do more and they will look for other habits. They'll naturally welcome other habits into their life that are related to that area, in this case, movement. And over time, there is this thing that I call a springboard moment. So they're taking these baby steps and feeling successful. And then there seems to be this moment when they open up to do something big, like join the gym. Now, in your mind and my mind, those may not feel like big things, but to people that don't go to the gym, that's a huge step for lots of reasons, including social reasons. And they might be able to be guilted into starting the gym or pressured by people, but it's rarely going to stick unless they're like, I want to go to the gym. And to make that shift, you can start in various places and do tiny things, allow yourself to feel successful. And when the motivation comes to join the gym or sign up for a marathon or join a walking group, say yes to that. But those bigger leaps seem to not happen if the people are just standing still. So the way to think about it is baby steps, tiny habits, baby steps, done quickly. And start where you want to start. Now that's the individual. There's more to that, of course. In terms of a gym, trying to bring people in the door, I think it's a little more challenging. I guess it depends on the business model of the gym. And I don't, in the US, a lot of people sign up and they drop out and they make money off that, et cetera, et cetera. So there is that. But if I truly wanted more people to come to the gym and come on a regular basis, I would focus on daily. I would focus on the gyms are close and easy to get to. I would focus on workouts that don't wipe you out or embarrass you. Like I went to a Zumba class. I used to go to Zumba. I went to Zumba about 3 months ago and I was completely humiliated. It was so hard. I was always off step and they made me stand in the front of the class. I'm pretty courageous when it comes to stuff like that, but that was an hour of torture. Okay, so design the gym experience where people go, it's not terribly hard, they feel successful. That's the key. If they go and they feel successful in a way that matters to them, boom, you're on your way. If they go and they feel like they weren't successful, or in my case, humiliated, they're not doing it again.
Yeah. I think, we have a lot of group classes and dance is one of the most popular format. Instead of Zumba, we use Bollywood music, which makes, I think, somewhat more fun and relatable. But I'll go double check on that and how we make it really accessible for people who are trying the first time.
Now, your instructors, the best instructors, are already doing what I'm going to say. Okay, they're going to welcome the person. And they're going to help that person feel successful And then after it's done, it's like, you did a great job. And they'll probably introduce them to other people in the class. So they leave after the first day, like, I did okay. And I'm making new friends. So this other motivator comes in of, oh my gosh, I'm making friends there. And I think your best instructors already do that. And so that's not, a surprise to anybody.
I want to go back to, your actually the heart of tiny habit method and what you mentioned, that says starting a new habit, in this case, let's say movement with a 30-second just dance jiggle while coffee is brewing. See, the biggest challenge with that is people forget, I may decide today, I may do my 30-second, I may even feel good about it. But next day, I'll be just mindlessly scrolling through my phone. What help I can get over first few weeks? That's where, mostly all these, well-intentioned efforts fizzle out.
And you're asking a question about one of the breakthroughs for me in creating the Tiny Habits method. And I gave a TEDx talk on this in 2012, but the breakthrough came for me in 2010. I already knew, because of when you look at the Fogg behavior model, and I'm not going to show the graphic here, but I developed this model about all behavior, including habits. And as I looked at the graphical version of my model, and you can find it at behaviourmodel.org, you see that the easier the behavior is, the more likely you are to do it. If a behavior is really easy, your motivation can be high or low. It can be a huge range, so you're more likely. If the behavior is hard, then you have to have high motivation. And it was me looking at my own graphic that I created, that's like, oh my gosh, so that means if a habit's really easy to do, then I'm much more likely to do it. And it means I don't have to have super high levels of motivation. So that's when I started goofing around with my own behavior. And it started with putting on 1 drop of sunscreen and flossing 1 tooth and doing 1 push-up. And it's like, okay, I don't have to be super motivated to floss 1 tooth or put on 1 drop of sunscreen. But then, and this is where your question comes in, I was like, okay, but there's still something missing. And this is what the TED Talk is on. And I won't go into the details of it, but what I realized is, you need to figure out where that habit fits naturally in your routine. What does it come after? After. So I got obsessed about, that's the secret. You need to know where this habit fits. What does it come after? So flossing for me came naturally after brushing. So in the Tiny Habits method, you don't use Post-its and you don't use alarms and you don't just simply remember. You place it in the sequence of your morning routine. After I brush, I will floss 1 tooth. And in the case of sunscreen, I forgot I called this the anchor, and James Clear took that concept and he renamed it habit stacking. And, that's a good name too. But to be clear, that was a breakthrough insight that I had about how you can design habits deliberately. And so for the dancing one, it could be after I start the coffee maker, I will turn on music and dance for, a little while. And it can be as short as 30 seconds. I did that this morning. I truly did. I did that yesterday. This morning wasn't very long because I was tired. I don't know why I was tired, but I did a little bit and said, okay, that's fine. But yesterday I did a lot more. Okay, so in the Tiny Habits method, you set the bar really low for the habit. And anytime you want to do more, like, I want to dance for 15 or 20 minutes, you do more. If you want to floss all your teeth, go for it. I mean, that's where I'm at now. But what reminds you to do it is a routine that you already have. So you connect, after I put my toothbrush down, then I pick up the floss and I floss. After I start the coffee maker, then I turn on the music and I dance. So that is your sequencing behaviors. It's almost like you're writing computer code for yourself or instructions. After this, I do this. And after this, I do this. That for me was a big enough breakthrough that I gave a whole TEDx talk on that in 2012.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed watching that TED Talk in preparation for this. And I think this is indeed a pretty powerful method for people to not put these desired habits in vacuum, but find something already in their routine which is well settled and somehow layer it on.
And let me add, there's a chapter in my book on this, but let me add, I won't share all, but one thing, you need to find where it fits naturally. Okay. That's why I say you can design habits into your life. You're not forcing them in. You're saying, where does this fit? Just like you design furniture in a room. Where does this fit naturally? And sometimes you'll find it on the first try. Other times you'll say, the dancing really doesn't fit there. Let me find where else it will fit. And that's part of the method, is iterating. You design the habit, you practice it, and then you revise it if needed. It's like, okay, well, dancing didn't fit there. Where is it going to fit? Or, writing 3 words in my journal didn't fit there. So where am I going to place that? So you are designing it. And design is an iterative process. And you don't pretend like you're going to be perfect. The first time you arrange a room or design anything, you understand that you don't just think about it, you try it. And then if it works, you keep going. And if it doesn't, you revise and you make adjustments.
And in your TED Talk, as well as the book, you also talk about importance of celebration. Just explain that, how should one think about that? Why is that important?
Yeah, let me set aside the word celebration and explain it in other terms.
Okay.
I think it'll be clear to people if we call it self-reinforcement. Okay. And what I discovered, and this happened quite by accident. I didn't discover it by reading the scientific literature. I discovered it by doing my own habits. And then when I coached hundreds and thousands of people, having some do it, some not doing, and comparing results, et cetera, is that it's not repetition that creates habits. It's emotions. It's the emotion you feel when you do the habit. That's what wires it in. And if you, let's say, dance in the morning for the first time and you feel great, your brain that fires off dopamine helps wire in the habit. But if you feel stupid and foolish, boom, the opposite happens, right? So these emotions of feeling successful or feeling good when doing a habit, you can deliberately hack that. And that's what we call celebration. Okay. So what you're doing is you're causing or allowing yourself to feel successful when you do a new habit in order to fire off the dopamine. Okay. And so what you're doing is you're self-reinforcing. Now, reinforcement, I think, should be familiar to most people here. Your dog does a trick and you give it a snack, or you say good boy or good girl, and you do it with kids and we do it with spouses. And what I'm saying is you do it to yourself. You self-reinforce deliberately, firing off a positive emotion that I call shine. There's not I looked for the name of this emotion. I looked in other languages. I called who I think is the world's expert on emotions and the number 2 person. And I said, what's the word for this? And they said, there's not a word. You should make one up. So I call it shine. Shine is the feeling of success. And that's what you want to use to self-reinforce. So cause or help yourself feel successful. And that the better you are at that, the faster the habit will form. And if you feel super successful, let me just take this example. So I'm holding a pen, a ballpoint pen. Let's say I buy this new ballpoint pen and I start writing with it. And it's like, oh my gosh, my handwriting is so beautiful and it's so easy to do. And I feel really successful using this pen. Guess what happens tomorrow when I reach for a pen? I reach for this one. Okay. The point here is if you can help yourself feel successful as you do the habit, and you can feel that strongly, you can substantially wire in the habit very quickly. It doesn't take 30 days or 66 days. That's all baloney. Look at the research carefully that says that. Look at it and you will see that's not great research. In my 5-day program, the vast majority of people report forming a habit to a fairly good degree of automaticity within 5 days.
Within 5 days.
So within 5 days, they report that a habit has become automatic or very automatic. Those, so very automatic, somewhat automatic, not at all automatic, so that, and the vast majority of people report that at least one of their habits has become automatic or very automatic within the 5-day period.
That's very important for people to know, because I think the 6 to 8 weeks things has become just part of popular culture now, and sometimes it also almost becomes an automatic excuse as well that it's going to take that long and travel and life situations will happen. But this is very powerful, and I mean, you are a practitioner, you work with a lot of people, so you actually are saying that with some deliberate effort, some shine, and some layering of habits with the existing routines, you can make a noticeable change in a week. Yes.
You can start wiring in habits very quickly. So again, pick a habit you want, make it really tiny, find where it fits naturally in your routine, and then, as you're flossing, let's say good for me, look yourself in, whatever causes you to feel successful, the stronger that emotion, the faster the habit will wire in. And you can do more than one habit at once. Anyway, let me back up to the misinformation that it takes 66 days to create a habit or 30 is sad. I might even say it's evil. Evil's maybe going, well, maybe because it's discouraging people from trying. Right. Just kind of like you said, if someone says, oh, it's going to take me weeks or 66 days to do this, I'm not going to do it. You're damaging people by selling them 66 days. It is simply not true. So that's why I almost go to the evil side, because when you damage people and cause them harm, that's not good. That's the opposite of good, right? So I'm here to say, yeah, you can form habits quickly and relatively easily, but you have to do it in the right way.
I want to just quickly change gear and talk about breaking habits as well. And I think you kind of alluded in breaking habits perhaps even harder than building new habits. Or just when you talk to a lot of people, where are most people at? I want to build new habits to improve my life, or I need to get rid of habits that I've acquired over a period of time to improve my life.
Most people are feeling guilty about habits they have around smoking, drinking, food, sitting too much. Yeah. And so they're feeling motivated by guilt or being nagged by somebody else to change those habits. The nagging really doesn't help and doesn't work. And there is, despite what it says on a cover of a very, very good, very popular book. I'll say it's popular, over 20 million copies, where it says there's a proven way to break bad habits. That's simply not true. There's no proven way to break bad habits. It's a great marketing phrase.
And when you say no proven, you mean the research literature, because people do research these things in behavioral psychology and so on, and they're so far saying there is really no conclusive evidence-based method.
There is a way to create habits that works, and it's proven. It's tiny habits. You can create habits. Yes. There's nothing like that in the world of breaking habits. There's no proven way. Habits are complicated. It's the type of person doing a behavior in a context. So this person smoking with his buddies after work. Okay. So you've got to account for who that person is, their personality, their characteristics, the behavior, smoking, and the context. Okay. So it's not just simply smoking or drinking or snacking. You've got those three variables to deal with. And that's what makes untangling. So I don't call it breaking bad habits. Untangling bad habits can be complicated. Now, when people say habits are hard to break, I'm like, nope, not true. How many people have you seen break the gym habit? And how hard was that for them to break the gym habit? Not hard. So I'm a little, for us, I'm a little impatient and a little riled up when people say false things like 66 days to create a habit or habits are hard to break. Well, some are and some aren't, right? And it's not about the number of days that you practice habit. It's about the emotions you feel. So in my work, I'm trying to get people focused on things that are accurate and practical. And so there are some habits that are easy to break, and there are some that are really hard to break. And and I call it untangle, and I give a process for that in my book. And there's a whole bunch in the middle.
And what is the role of seeking external help? And as I'm asking this question, I'm just thinking of a friend of mine recently went through a rehab. It was drinking habit, cutting out of hand. The person checks into a rehab, had a pretty good 3-week rehab experience, was feeling great after that, but also very mindful is going back to similar environment, which is where kind of origin of this whole habit. And just watching him describe the kind of life he's going to walk back into, I wasn't feeling very optimistic despite the 3-week rehab period, especially with the festive season around the corner and so on. How important is to recruit external help when you're trying to get out of this, untangle these bad habits?
I think I'm going to answer this in a way you're not expecting.
Okay.
For habits, I'm talking maybe not to you, but people listening and watching, that are damaging your life, that are threatening your well-being, get professional help. Don't just think, listen to BJ Fogg's going to be the thing, or even reading my book, even though I have a systematic way to untangle bad habits. If it is causing harm, or you know somebody where they have a habit that's causing significant harm, then and I say this really clearly in my book, you go get the person, find people who are experts in this. So for certain kinds of people doing a habit in a context, there are solutions. Okay? So I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying find the expert that understands this kind of person doing this kind of behavior in this kind of context, and here's how we help them reduce or stop. But there are so many variables that there's not one method that helps everybody. I'll give an example. So in the US, the 12-step program, or going to these programs and being guided and having buddies, for some people is very effective. Now, I'm going to share something I rarely share. There was a point in my life, I was living in wine country in California, and my husband and I, we were drinking too much. It wasn't like it was damaging our life, but it was like, you know what? Everybody around us drinks all the time. All the events are about drinking, and we're done with that. And I didn't go to a 12-step program. I was a little, what shall I say, anxious, because I'd heard so many stories about how hard it was. And guess what? We stopped and never looked back. And the hardest thing were the social things, going to parties, and we say, oh, we're not drinking tonight, or we don't say, oh, we're not drinking anymore, and all you guys are evil. It's like, I'm just going to stick with water tonight. And it was easier than I thought. Okay. Now, that's not everybody's situation. This is BJ Fogg with wine in a wine country setting or other social settings. And so that's why I'm saying there's not one solution. There are spot or micro solutions. So find the expert that knows how to help you with that. And in some cases, like if I had known that I could, and part for me was completely stop. It wasn't moderation. Moderation, people say moderation, all those things. I think that's baloney. For something like this, don't moderate, you stop. And for me, coming to that realization on my own, it's like, I just can't. The moderation thing means I'm always going to slide back. It's a hard stop, which I did. And I'm so glad I did. And I wish I'd done it sooner, but everybody built up how hard it is to do. And it's going to be hard for some people. There was another habit I had that they would not let me put in my book. And that was popcorn. I had a serious popcorn addiction. People think it's funny. And my editor and agent were like, no, you can't talk about your popcorn addiction in the book. That was hard. I got over it. I mean, that was way harder than stopping alcohol and there's a reason. There's a reason that I grew up in a home that we worked constantly. And when we made popcorn, that meant we could relax. That was the it was a signal that you could relax. And that was just wired into me. So that was, we're talking person, habit, context. For me as a person, that was in my psychology, was if I make popcorn and eat popcorn, it means I can relax and I don't have to think about work and all these other things. So anyway, so that was one reason I think that habit was very hard to untangle, but I got there.
No, thanks.
And now I don't eat a single kernel. I will never eat a single kernel of popcorn because I'll be back to popcorn.
That's outstanding. Thanks for sharing that. And in fact, the wine, I have almost similar anecdote. Lived in California for a while, acquired the wine habit, and at some point I was collecting wine. But 3 years ago, I realized and decided it's bad for me, and at some point just stopped. And and one of the things I've noticed, and I think you're all saying similar things, that it's at some point become part of your identity. Now I'm a person who just don't drink. It's not about habit anymore. Is there something to that? How you frame your identity, or if you're
yes, absolutely. I mean, there's how you think about yourself and how others think about you. And some of my research in the mid-90s was about identity and how identity influences and so on. So let's say, for example, I go to a party with my friend Dorothy, and I say, "Oh, Dorothy, I'm sticking to water tonight." And later she talks about, I've stopped drinking. So if she's a good friend, and she's a truly good friend, now thinks of me as this person, and she's not going to offer me drinks anymore. And she's going to always bring water to me and help me be the best person I can be. Right. So, but I didn't go around announcing. In fact, we kept it quite quiet. And this is one of the rare occasions I've actually discussed it. But there are the way people perceive you. And if people know you're trying to, create a habit or untangle a habit, and if they sabotage you, they are not your friend. But that happens a lot. I saw that so many times. And sometimes it was spouses, and it just broke my heart. When people said, and now my husband's saying I'm just going through a phase and da-da-da-da-da. But hopefully people will support you and embrace and support your new identity. So that's one. It's a social identity. The other one is how you think about yourself. And this is why even a simple habit like eating a healthy snack, after I take my afternoon break, I'll eat this little carrot or whatever you consider. It doesn't matter what it is. A healthy snack. As you do that and feel successful, that changes your identity. I'm the kind of person who eats healthy snacks, and that will have ripple effects on other behaviors that you do. And that was very clear in my program. Now, James Clear made a whole bunch about identity, and his book happened to get published before mine. So I removed that from my book, but I did tons of research on this. And when people do even tiny things and feel successful, their identity shifts. I started measuring that in 2014. And people would shift from, I can't change, to, I'm the kind of person who can change. I'm the kind of person who can follow through. I'm the kind of person who can make healthy choices. And that happened within 5 days. My program's only 5 days. So it comes from feeling successful at making this change. And what seems to be true is the size of the change didn't matter. They could just be eating a healthy snack, and then they start thinking about themselves in this new way. And that has these, like I said, ripple effects.
Yeah, I must say, BJ, I think your work has had a profound positive impact in, a lot of people's lives. And I think, and it's all rooted in real science. It's not popular psychology or something that just people believe, motivational stuff, but that's very well grounded in modern science. So I think thanks so much for, everything you've done to both research, find, and then, translate into a method that's easy for people to understand, follow, and translate into a lot of positive impact in their lives. On the closing note, my last question to you, BJ, is what is your hope and wish for this whole, if I can call it science of behavior change in the coming, years and decades? How do you see it panning out? What's your vision for the world, when it comes from this aspect?
Oh my gosh. How many wishes do I get here?
I know you have a hard stop. I don't have hard stop, so take as much time as you can.
Let me give... let me start here. You probably don't expect this. One of the things I really, really hope is that kids are taught how to create habits, the tiny habits method, early. And to that end, since I know they're not reading my book, I worked with some songwriters and musicians. We wrote a set of songs, which you can find on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Music. Search Fogg and Tiny Habits, and we have 14 songs that teach aspects of behavior change and so on. That was an effort to bring it to a level of kids 4 to 10. That's probably the range for those songs. And it can be taught and shared another way. Imagine, everybody watching this, if you had been taught in 4th grade, when you're 9 or something like that, here's how you create habits. Here's how you self-reinforce. Think how different. And it was just, and your friends had that skill too, and your parents were, that it would just be really different. Yes, we'd all still have struggles, but we would have more confidence in tackling those struggles and creating habits to move through things. Next wish would be that someone would that someone would pull together the world's experts in bad habits, because there's not going to just be one way. Like forming habits, there is one way. Just like you take a seed, you put it in the earth, and you keep it, you nourish it, and it grows. Okay, there's one way that works. But for different types of plants, there's different ways you have to pull them out of the earth. For different types of habits, there's different ways you've got to remove them. I wish somebody would pull those experts together, and then people could say, oh, this is the type of habit I have that I want to untangle, and here is the expert or the method I need to use. So I wish there was a nuanced, practical way for people to connect with how they can untangle their unwanted habits. So that would be... two different answers, two very different answers. I'm probably not going to do that. If you were to say, BJ, who's the world's expert in breaking bad habits? I don't even know who that is. I've asked people to come forward and tell me, if you're the expert on this, you tell me. It's not there. So I think it is for different kinds of people, different kinds of habits, different kind of context. And you could, map out those, combine those in different ways. There are experts out there, but those experts know they're not global experts for all types of habits. So and that's why my wish would be somebody pull this together and create a way to match people with the right expert and method for what they need.
I really hope that happens in the coming years and decades, because world will be a much better place if people are able to get out of these habits which are not good for them. I said last question, but I think I'll be remiss if I don't ask you about the role of AI in all of this. What is your current perspective on how AI is likely to aid or perhaps hinder this process of self-improvement and taking control of one's habits?
I think it's really emerging. But what I'm quite sure of is will always be a role for a skilled human coach, whether you call it a coach or not. The human will not be obsolete in this process. And so I teach people that are in the behavior change field. They become certified in the Tiny Habits method. They become official Tiny Habits coaches. And this has been, so every month of this year, I train people as they certify, and then I do office hours, and then I give a training once a month for all the coaches. And every month this year was about how to thrive as a human coach in the world of AI. And we did that every month. And so we've been looking at it in various ways. And AI does play a role in our lives and more. But what seems clear is a good human coach will always be in demand, because there's certain things that AI can pretend to do, but not really do genuinely. And as we get less adolescent about AI and understand that it's basically flattering us and it's pretending to have emotions when it truly doesn't, and so on. And it can't say, I'll be thinking about you, I'll pray for you, I've been there, I know exactly what you're going through, and I've been there. Yeah, AI may say that, but with more sophistication, when we see it clearly, it will see that as it's misleading me. And then also the companies that own the AI, what are they doing with that information? So yes, I think we are finding ways that technology, in this case AI, can help us improve our lives and our habits, but good human coaches will always be needed.
Thanks for sharing that. I think, BJ, you are truly making the world a better place. Very grateful for the work you've done, as well as taking the time to speak with me. I'm pretty sure a lot of people in India will be able to start their new year on an upbeat note and armed with some new tools. So thanks so much for that.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Great. At SparX, we aim to bring to you stories of exponential impact. We share in-depth analysis of what goes behind success stories. If you find our conversations interesting, you can join us by subscribing to our YouTube channel. You can also listen to SparX on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or any other audio platform of your choice. If you have any suggestions on who we should invite or what topics we need to cover, just let us know in the comments. We are always listening, looking for ways to improve, and keep getting better as we go along.